10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Game over.
Welcome back. It's the same shit as it was before. That's right. We're starting it off like that. We are back the Montreal Canadiens. Nothing's changed. It's the same garbage. I'm going to welcome in two guests today, Julian McKenzie and Scott Matla. How's it going, boys?
Hey, did something happen? Did the Canadiens win? What happened?
Oh my God. This team, it's hard to watch.
I mean, they held Jack Hughes, PK Subban, and Dougie Hamilton without a point tonight. It doesn't matter that two out of three of them didn't play, but that doesn't matter because we're just taking moral victories at this point. I'm pretty sure in this season.
Moral victories are for minor league coaches, and I'm sorry, but Dominic Ducharme doesn't even look like he's cut out for the minor leagues at this point.
I was gonna say that's an insult, man. Have you seen Jean-Francois Houle?
Here's the thing, JF Houle and the Laval Rocket right now, they're trying to do everything that they can to keep the vibes up and try to have them go for the playoffs. Dominic Ducharme, I mean, at this point, he's going to be the guy. The team said that they were going to keep him. Man, that's tough to play for that guy right now, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of moral victories, right? I write for a betting site. I do some work for them, and so I'm constantly looking at the odds of games on Tuesdays and Saturdays, which is often days where the Canadiens play. Outside of Thursdays, which they also usually play because I don't really check the odds on off days where I'm not writing. It's been months since I've seen the Canadiens favored in a game. They were favored to win tonight. Because let's talk about the Devils a little bit. Because if we're going to talk about moral victories, let's establish that there are none. The Devils were without Jack Hughes, who has been great up until this point, the last stretch since he came back from injury, because he's on the COVID protocol list now. They're without Dougie Hamilton, who I think is arguably their best player. They've lost 10 out of 11 games coming into this one. Just brutal. 7 straight. They're on the second half of a back-to-back with travel. A short travel from Ottawa, but still with travel. Canadiens have been rested. They've got guys back from injury. I mean, they have their own injuries too, especially in goal. But frankly, I had never heard of who the Devils have in net tonight before tonight. So this is bad. It might be the worst game of the whole year. I don't even know who was
in net.
John Gillies played in net, and I'm pretty sure he was on a PTO in the AHL to start the season. He was signed to a PTO for the Islanders to start the season and ended up on the Devils on some kind of deal. He was in the AHL a month ago. They lost to their 5th choice goaltender tonight on a back-to-back without 2 of their best players. I keep saying I don't know, and we keep saying I don't know how much lower this can get, but God willing, they're gonna try some point here that it's gonna go lower.
Yo, man, I have to say, I genuinely thought that Minnesota loss would be as low as it would get for the Montreal Canadiens. I figure you go through a loss like that, losing 8-2, that's still the most goals they've allowed in a game. That is as low as it gets. It still may very well be that point, but I just figured we'd see more games with a bit more fight, and we have not seen that. And I get there's injuries. I get all the other stuff going on with the team. It's just these performances, I'm sure for fans, they're feeling the same thing that I have to say now. It's unacceptable for people to watch this. It's ridiculous.
And this is Julian and I chat all the time in a group chat that we have on Twitter, and we were talking just what the future of the team is going to be. And I don't think anybody wants Kent Hughes to make a move just to make a move, or to make a panic move to try to get, some wins in there. I don't think anybody even wants the Canadiens to win, but they can kind of get away with this right now where there's very few fans in the building. But the Quebec government released today their plan to re-escalate or go out of the restrictions is about the same as what we have in Ontario, which is, I think, February 24th. I think they said they're going to have 50%
February 21st.
21st, yes. Okay. So 50% capacity at the Bell Center. when you have people paying $300 for a ticket in the Reds for this, I feel like then there's a certain amount of pressure on Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton not to make them a winning team. Nobody's saying that, but to not make them an absolute embarrassment. And frankly, their last stretch of games is more than just being bad. They have been unbelievably embarrassing. There is no fight to be had. There's like the goalies cannot stop anything. And like no disrespect to them, I think Caden Primo is just not ready. Sam Montembeault is being asked to do something he should not be being asked to do, frankly. It's just awful, and like they have to figure out something to get the team to a point of respectability that might come naturally after the trade deadline, just moving some bodies out and having like a bit of a fresh start, like a clean slate for a lot of these players. And maybe by then, like Carey Price could be back, Jake Allen could be back. We don't know, but I think they can't wait that long. They've got to do something. I know that Pierre LeBrun on the broadcast mentioned the idea of maybe Anton Khudobin, who I think was a Kent Hughes client and has gone through waivers already this year. So maybe there's something there that they can figure out. They just have to work out the salary, and I don't know what the Canadiens are at for contracts. They must be close to 50 with all the injuries they've had to deal with. But they've got to do something to be a little bit more respectable, because this is just painful.
Yeah, I think even if it means, and I get that maybe with the guys, with the way that their salary structure might be, it's a lot harder to do. But even if it means signing Kevin Poulin to an NHL deal, just letting him play games until the goalies come off IR, like that's just what it's going to have to take. I feel with the Canadiens, as healthier bodies start to come back into the lineup, you should be doing everything you can to get those guys in and send guys like Cole Caulfield down to the minors. I can understand why you'd want to keep up Ryan Poehling in spite of the fact that he'd be in a losing environment, because just like tonight, he's playing well. He's at least responding to the fact that he's getting NHL minutes and he's playing well. Like he actually looked as if he was the best Canadiens forward on the ice right now. But for a guy like Cole Caulfield and for Caden Primo, they're not responding as well as the Canadiens would like them to in this environment. And it's a lot better for them to at least play meaningful hockey, even if it's in the American Hockey League, but meaningful minutes in the AHL, as opposed to playing on this crappy Canadiens team. This team may go down, if it hasn't already, as the worst team of the salary cap era. And I'm sure there is strong
further back than that.
They're the worst team of the modern era. I think since expansion. Maybe not as bad as the Capitals, but like they have the same number of wins right now.
I think they're approaching it though.
Yeah,
that team of that Rick Green was on like 7 or 8 wins. Like, yeah, that team they're right on par.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, and like Scott mentioned, they were an expansion team. If you exclude expansion teams, the last team that's been this level of bad in the NHL was the 1989-1990 Quebec Nordiques, who tanked for Owen Nolan. And it was in the middle of 3 years in a row where they finished in last place and got the first overall pick. And I brought this up, Steve Dangle mentioned on the Steve Dangle podcast a couple weeks ago, that the Nordiques finished, picked first overall 3 years in a row, and then 5 years later, as the Avalanche, won the Stanley Cup with none of those players. They picked Matt Sundin, Owen Nolan, and Eric Lindros first overall 3 years in a row, traded all of them. Obviously, Lindros forced that, but the other ones, I mean, the other thing is, like, the Sundin trade wasn't even good, which is crazy.
Yeah.
You trade a Hall of Fame for, like, a washed-up grinder. No offense to Wendell Clark, who was great when he was great, but fell off quickly because, like, you play that physical style, your body gets destroyed.
You just called Wendell Clark washed up. There's a Leafs fan looking to beat you up right now.
I was going to say, Wendell Clark as a Nordique was not Wendell Clark, who is grossly overrated by a lot of Toronto fans, but that's neither here nor there.
Okay, all right. So Scott decided to be more direct and asked to get his ass.
I'm just saying what I know in my heart, and I will not disrespect Vancouver Canucks legend Matt Sundin like that. So I am. Look, if my team's going to be this bad, I'm going to be throwing strays out here when I get my chance. It's right there. It's just like Chicago legend Bobby Orr and et cetera, et cetera. So like,
Detroit Red Wings legend Daniel Alfredson.
Yes, that's my personal favorite, et cetera, et cetera. But I look at this team, and with Caden Primo, he was having such a good season. He was consistent in the AHL. It wasn't 3 or 4 good starts in a row, and then he kind of falls off for a little when he gets back. And then he's thrust into this situation. I think he played well. He played the game against the Avalanche. He had that shootout win against Philadelphia, and he looked good, and then the team just imploded, and he's being asked to do too much that he's not ready for. Samuel Montembeault is not a goalie made for this. Even Jake Allen, who has performed admirably in comparison, you're asking for Sisyphus to finally push the boulder over the hill, and that's just not going to happen this season when your defense is what it is and the system is whatever the hell it is, which is not inexistent. It's a bad situation for guys, but they don't have any choice but to play them because everyone's injured and et cetera, et cetera. It's just a combination of everything bad happening, and it's not even like the scores are close anymore. It's got to be hard to watch, especially as a young player on this, that you really can't do anything right now that works or fixes things.
But what's also wild too is that we're seeing this stretch of games, the Minnesota game, Edmonton and Columbus before the break, and now tonight against New Jersey Devils. All these games, and I know there's a few more games I'm not even mentioning here, that comes after they play against some tough opponents in Colorado, Vegas, and Dallas. And you can make an argument that might have been their best 3-game stretch of the year, where they get 4 points out of a possible 6. And you think, well, you know what? Even if the Canadiens are not going to be a winning product, if they're going to go up against those 3 teams, all Western Conference teams, I can't say off the top of the head where the Dallas Stars are, but I know they've been kind of up and down, and they're expecting the best from guys like Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin. But we all know about how good Vegas and Colorado are, or at least supposed to be. But you go back to those stretch of games and look at how the Canadiens lost those games. I mean, a bit of a situation where they kind of had where they looked as if they're going to win, then they have a loss coming towards them. But fans didn't mind that. At least they could say they competed in those games. I think that's what also makes this last stretch of games even worse, because the Canadiens at least looked as if they were going to turn some kind of a corner. And maybe there might have been hope that the second half of the year would at least be a little bit better. And they had injuries then too in those 3 games. I think some guys were still on COVID protocol as well. And now you're just seeing this team. I don't know if it's the Minnesota game that broke them for real, but the wheels have completely fallen off.
Yeah, I'll tell you, the thing that stuck out to me about those games where they were brutally outshot, and like Montembeault had his best games of the season, Primo had his best game of the season, that stretch. But the Canadiens were scoring goals, right? They were making defensive sacrifices to score some goals. And that, frankly, when you're going to lose anyway, is entertaining. And it's what they should be doing. Like, at this point, it's all fine and dandy to think like, oh yeah, Dom Ducharme is trying to get them to play with structure and play the right way. It's not going to be his structure next year. It just is not. I cannot see a scenario where Dom Ducharme is back next year. So let them play loose. Let the young kids make mistakes. And yeah, lose 6-5. It's better than losing 7-1. You know, like, let them try to score. Let them make some plays, you know? And, you know, we try to look for positives on the show every single time. And I was trying to write things down during the game, and it wasn't much. The only thing that I came up with was Hailing doing the net drive. Like, every single controlled entry, he was like, I'll just skate right to the net. And sometimes the puck would get to him, and he missed the net twice. I think he hit the post once, and the one goal that they did get, he did the net drive. He didn't like touch the puck, but he was part of that goal. So that's good. You know, he's playing well again, but other than that, wasn't much to write home about.
Hey, Caulfield shot the puck a lot.
Yeah, I mean, Caulfield, I thought he had a good game. I mean, that line in general was good. Probably the first time I've said all season that Yoel Armia was good. So something.
It's so tough. I'm glad that Ryan Poehling played well, because people are like, oh, should they send him down? It's like, I think he has NHL talent there, and it's just been, he's part of that lost in the shuffle this season with a new line mates every other night. It's so hard to try and get anything going. At least, you know, Caulfield and Poehling looked good in this. I can't really say that about literally anyone else on this team tonight. I know Brett Kulak scored a goal, but I couldn't say anything outside of that. It's getting tough to find the silver linings in some of these because, like you said, if you win 6-5, just go full send, pew pew, have fun with it. When you sit there and just get beat up like Homer in his boxing matches over and over and over again, it's no fun watching it, and it's demoralizing.
I'll add this too. I don't even think the Canadiens need to lose 6-5. At this point, I think Canadiens fans would be happy with like a 2-0 or a 3-0 loss, or like 4-1 or 4-2.
Just
Like
not
7-1, 8-2. That's embarrassing. It's bad. It's bad. This is how bad the Canadiens are. Watch, the Canadiens are gonna play some game against some team. They're gonna lose like 3-0. You're gonna be like, man, they really played well tonight. That's how bad it's gonna get for this team.
Oh God. Here's a question for you guys. Don't look. Please don't cheat. Who do you think among the Canadiens forwards got the most even strength ice time tonight?
Oh no.
Who would you guess? Who was rewarded for playing well?
I'm gonna say Jake Evans.
No.
I'm going to say, so it's not Jake Evans, it's not Ryan Poehling. I'm going to make my answer Brendan Gallagher.
Mike Hoffman.
Da, 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 da.
I'm serious. I'm not even kidding.
Actually, no, wrong song. Boom, 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 boom.
Mike Hoffman, 15 minutes, 25 seconds. Played, let's see here, almost 4 more minutes than Ryan Poehling.
I didn't know Mike Hoffman was playing until he tried to fight Thomas Tatar at the end of the game.
That's a fight from Mike Hoffman, man. Gotta admire the fight.
He didn't even get a chance to fight him. He just kind of went in there and then they skated away, and it was about the same effort he puts into most of his shifts in the game anyways. So man.
Hey, actually, talking of moral victories, the fact that a player stepped up after a Canadiens player was knocked on his ass, very much a moral victory. The fact that Mike Hoffman stepped up for Nick Suzuki after he got bowled over by Thomas Tatar, that is a moral victory for this Montreal Canadiens team. At the very least, we could say the Montreal Canadiens will step up for their players when they get their asses handed to them and bowled over.
Sometimes.
We can't say
sometimes. Are they going to do it to Jeff Petrie when he keeps shoving players into his own goalies? Because he did that again tonight. I can't remember who he shoved into Caden Primo, but he did it again
after he scored, right?
Yeah, and it's just stop doing it. I appreciate Jeff Petrie and all that he's done, but I am begging you to stop yeeting players into your goaltenders. We don't have any left for you to have run into anymore.
Maybe
we're down to the last
two.
two.
Goal, and he's like, if I injure all the goalies, I'll get to play goalie.
And in comes Joe Verbatic from the OHL, and Jeff's gonna throw someone into him too, and we're just gonna be down to whoever the goaltending. We're gonna get an e-bug at some point in Montreal.
Frederick Dekow, call him up.
He's over in Sweden. Who? Oh man!
I got 2 quotes from Josh Anderson that I just saw on the timeline. I feel embarrassed, to be honest with you, and he also said at one point, "We have to make hockey fun again." Can we stop?
He's right.
Like saying we have to do again. Like, can we stop that? That was very much
true.
like,
yeah. I mean,
stop doing that.
Anderson's good friends with Max Domi, so
yeah,
he's probably on that train.
I would not go that far. I'm not going to talk about his politics.
I have a counter quote to that, and this comes from head coach Dominique Ducharme. They were opportunistic.
Wow.
What is that supposed to mean?
He thinks
it means that they took the plethora of opportunities to score goals on the Canadiens tonight. That's what happened.
Okay, that's great. I was opportunistic when they told me to work at the SDPN with Andrew. I don't know if I would say the same. I don't know if that's the same type of opportunity that the Montreal Canadiens got tonight.
Was he paying attention?
I don't think so. I think he was fixing his mask most of the time and wasn't paying attention to what was happening on the ice, which was an ass kicking for the second straight month.
Listen, to give Ducharme a tiny shred of not even credit, but understanding. After the first period, the Canadiens were much better than they were in the first period. But here's the thing. they were already losing. So a lot of that was score effects and the Devils sitting back. And like, yeah, sure, they were opportunistic in the second and third periods, but they already won the game in the first period because you only scored 1 goal. So that first period against a team that played last night that got rocked by the Ottawa friggin' Senators, by the way, who aren't very good. I know they're on a little heater right now, and last I checked, they were beating Carolina, but still, by the Ottawa Senators, without Drake Batherson, Canadiens controlled 12.3% of the expected goals in that first period. High danger chances were 7-1 for the Devils, 11-3 in scoring chances for the Devils. Shots on net, 11-5. And I feel like that 5 is very generous for the Montreal Canadiens because they did not do much in that first period. So the idea that the Devils were just opportunistic and that was the difference between the game is absolutely delusional. And that kind of leads me to my next topic is like, I know it's difficult because the Canadiens have already said they don't want to make a coaching change this season, but Pierre LeBrun mentioned on the broadcast the idea of possibly just letting Luke Richardson ride the season out. And it's unfortunate. We don't really have the Francophone perspective here, but I feel like with names like Hughes, Gorton, and then Richardson, it might be a one step too far for certain members of the Francophone media. I don't know if they can do that this year, especially with so few Francophone players on the team without facing a serious kind of heat, which is a tough way to open up your stretch as a management group in Montreal. But at the same time, like, at a certain point, Ducharme is kind of making his, like, he's putting the nails into his own coffin, right? Like, dealt a shit hand, but you got to do something successful here.
I'll just say this with LeBron. I felt that the way that he kind of phrased the idea of Dominic Ducharme stepping aside for Luke Richardson, I heard the broadcast too on TSN. I think he made it sound as if it's not necessarily something that the Canadiens were actively considering, or I just think it's like, hey, like, what do you do with the situation? Is that what you do? Or do you put Luke Richardson in? I don't know. Like, that's how Pierre LeBrun was trying to frame it, at least from how I heard it. I didn't necessarily think he was trying to make it seem as if that was the Canadiens was doing.
No, I agree.
We all know if LeBrun was, we all know if that was a legit thing, that would be all over the timeline right now, and we would be spending a good chunk of time talking about that. But that being
he
said,
wasn't posting or he wasn't saying like insider, this is what they're gonna do. He was throwing it out there as like, this is something that they could do, maybe, who knows. But if he's saying it at all at this stage, you have to think that there's a possibility, and I didn't think it was a possibility a month ago.
But like, the Canadiens are just coming off a bye week where they had ample time to say, you know what, they didn't even have to do it on the Monday. First thing, you could just say, you know what, let everyone chill the Monday, Tuesday, and then on Wednesday you announce, okay, Luke Richardson is going to be head coach until the end of the year. And if people are going to make a whole language thing out of it, I mean, like, what else do you expect to have happen? You know, Luke Richardson even took over for the team in the playoffs when Dominic Ducharme was in COVID protocol. I mean,
did a great job,
as they are, he did a good job. He did a very good job. I have to say, and I feel like I have to do this with Luke Richardson every time now, because when the Canadiens were playing the season before the Panini happened, when they went through that stretch of time in the bubble year, or the Canadian division year, where they really looked sloppy in that second half of the year, my whole thinking was the Canadiens were making all these changes, or one change that had to be made was Luke Richardson being removed from his position as assistant coach, just because I felt that the defense was not up to snuff. But Luke Richardson has proved that he is in fact a good coach. And I think because of how well he did with the Canadiens in the postseason, I mean, how many times have you heard anyone suggest, hey, you know what the Canadiens should do to really spice things up? Get rid of Luke Richardson. I have heard that a grand total of 0 times this year. Dominic Ducharme, obviously. Bergevin, obviously, he's got to go. I have not heard anyone say that Luke Richardson is the problem. So I feel as if, like, Luke Richardson, if he ends up being the coach, like, I can't help but think that there aren't going to be too many people who are going to be complaining about it. And let's also just say this too. The people who complain about language in Quebec. I understand. French is obviously the dominant language in Quebec. It's great to be able to learn English and French. It's good to see, the culture that's there and all that. And there's so many things that are part of Quebec culture and not just one thing. But the people who I find make a big deal about it, and that was especially the case when Kent Hughes got hired, it's a vocal minority. It's a very vocal minority who wants to make themselves heard or write stupid columns in the Journal de Montréal. Excuse me. No disrespect to the publication, they're great, but there are people there who write bad columns there. Facts are facts, but there are also bad people who write columns for other publications that I'm not going to mention right now because whatever. All that to say, it's a very vocal minority of people who want to make themselves heard about this issue. And if it ever got to a point where the Canadiens said, you know what, man, we have no choice, we have to put Luke Richardson in, dude, at this point, this team's not going anywhere. If people are going to really lose their minds over it, like, consider the team you're shitting a brick over. And at the end of the day, the people who are going to lose their minds, again, a vocal minority, they got to tune up the noise. There are going to be a lot more people. There are already a lot more people who are pissed at the team as is compared to who's going to coach the team right now.
Yeah, I feel like ignoring a vocal minority is something that we should all be practicing right now as the idiots campaigning in the middle of the street in Ottawa are proving once again that they will be very loud and have very few people there. But yeah, I was with you, Julian, actually last year with the whole Luke Richardson thing. He was one of the guys that I was like, this guy's kind of got to go, because I looked at his whole history as essentially the PK and defense coach, and it's not great, but he seems to be maybe a better head coach. And I know from talking to people that the players really like him. So that also helps, and especially in a short-term situation where you're taking over as the head coach, it seemed like the players were willing to run through a wall for him. So that was something. And again, the thing that I hesitate to push a coaching change for is you don't necessarily want them to start winning. If the coach is a big part of them losing, you gotta kind of let it ride.
With the roster as it is right now, like, what winning are they going to do? Andrew, look at the roster on the team right now. You mean to tell me a coaching change is going to make them into a winner?
No, but they might beat the Devils.
For real. Be real with me. You look at the roster as it is right now. You mean to tell me this roster winning some games?
Maybe against the Devils.
They might win a consecutive game. That's it.
Yeah, not two.
They're not going to go on a run. Yeah, they're not going to go on a run. But they're going to be better.
If Price came back and he's like playoff Price, then they could, go on a run by accident. But with the goalies that they got in right now, it's not going to happen.
Nah, man. Playoff Price. Look, the Canadiens should be happy if Carey Price is able to play at all. You know what I'm saying? I don't even know if the Canadiens are going to be able to get playoff Price. Kent Hughes doesn't even know that. Kent Hughes has to figure that out.
I mean, Carey Price.
The Canadiens need to figure that out. Carey Price doesn't even know if he'll be able to play. The fact that he was willing to talk to us before the break, us as in the media, like, hey, I'm sure we all appreciate that, and I'm sure a lot of people are happy to see that he's okay, or at least seems like he's okay since he's gotten out of the player assistance program. Man, I don't even like. I know Arpin Basu made the point that people should stop making the point that he shouldn't be able to that he shouldn't play the rest of the year. This is really for him to do. I get all of that. There's no real point for Carey Price to play the games in this season. The only thing that would do is just for him, and that's important. But like, if you're the Canadiens, like, why are you rushing for Carey Price to get back?
Yeah. A friend of the show, Jared Book, says that it's not about wins or losses. It's about changing the culture, changing the vibe. I think that is a big thing. Like, the
vibes are bad.
The vibes are bad, but I think that's one of those things where, do we know if Ducharme is part of the reason why the vibes are bad, right? Do the players not like playing for him? It seems like Jeff Petrie doesn't like playing for him, just based on some of the choice quotes that have come this season. But it seems like Jeff Petrie is going to be on the move soon anyway. So it's like, between the pandemic, between the losing, between all the injuries, I don't know if you can necessarily create a situation where the vibes are suddenly good again. You know what I mean? Like it's great to think about it, and I feel like the organization could really benefit from trying to build towards next season and try to have the players thinking positively. But for me personally, I just don't know how you get there. I don't know who could do that. Like, who's this amazing coach who could make all the players happy all of a sudden?
I have a quote. So I realize that now at this point we're kind of just reading off whatever quotes we get from the media availability here. Jared Book, of once again our good buddy Jared Book. I believe he's probably listened to the press conference. Stu Cowan for the Montreal Gazette, our good buddy who's on the Hockey Inside Out show, asked Dominic Ducharme, "Are you concerned that players are giving up?" Dominic Ducharme responds, "No. ... I don't feel that at all."
So I want to go back to last year. It was one of Caden Primo's first games in the NHL last year, and he was getting absolutely torched against the Leafs. And there's this really awkward interaction where Josh Anderson comes out in between periods, kind of, gives him a pat on the back. They chat for a little bit. And then Primo's standing in the tunnel as the coaches walk by, and Ducharme looks at him, and there's this really just awkward eye contact and fist bump, and Ducharme just kind of walks away. And there's something weird that something just doesn't connect. And yeah, the playoffs were great, but the Canadiens under Ducharme last year, after they fired Claude Julien, were also not very good or very consistent for a while there. And they got bailed out by some goal scoring, some timely goals by some veterans, and just people who were very good last year kind of saved that. And when everything got stacked against him, there's no bailing out right now. And it looks like it's all on Ducharme, and the playoffs were just its own thing. Part of that is Carey Price was immaculate for about as long as he could be. It's all so tough. Like, I don't want to put it all on him. There's injuries, this, that, and the other thing. But at some point, you got to do something. And I don't even know if firing the coach is is bringing Guy Boucher in going to fix things? I don't think so. Bringing Joel Bouchard back from San Diego going to fix things? No. And they're not going to take Jean-Francois Houle out of Laval in the middle of the season when the Rocket are very good or are playing well under him right now and just mess all that up too. There's not an easy solution. I don't envy Kent Hughes trying to figure this out. Even if it is Luke Richardson, the last thing we want is a repeat of Randy Cunningworth having a bus driven over him because of how they, handled the coaching change there.
Where's Randy right now?
Yeah, where is Randy right now? That's a good question. I'm going to look that up. But I think the main thing that I'm looking at with this team is they're not going to make a coaching change that would be anything other than an interim, right? Because there's no reason for Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon to rush into the decision. This one going to be one of the biggest decisions going forward for them. It just doesn't make any sense. As far as I can tell, Cunningworth has not done anything in hockey, according to Hockey DB, since 2015-16.
He was fired in 2017 by Jason Botterill as he was a member of the scouting staff for the Buffalo Sabres.
Okay. So he hasn't been coaching since 2015-16.
He might be in Florida on a boat fishing right now, for all we know.
I hope he's happy. I have nothing against Randy
More importantly
Cunningworth.
than anything, I hope he's
I don't
happy
think he was an
healthy.
issue. Yeah, so that it's people who've been demonized in their short time with the Canadiens, unfortunately. But yeah, I think the coaching change is it's one of those things where it sounds good, but I don't think it's happening. It's probably not realistic. Somebody mentioned Benoit Gruel. I think he's in the Lightning organization. I doubt they're going to give him.
He's the Syracuse Crunch head coach, and he comes to Laval Wednesday night.
3-game series led by Charles Hudon and Gabriel Dumont, baby. We got the Ice Caps Revenge series going on. Dumont and Hudon are back in town, so poor Kevin Poulin's going to get scored on so much by the two of them.
We'll take it.
I'm going to go on Wednesday. I'm going to take in the AHL game, so I get to watch the Rocket, the team. I'm going to try to cover and the team I used to intern for, the Crunch.
I would give you a heads up. They are missing their top 3 centers, potentially one of their other top wingers, and they are down to their 4th and 5th choice goaltenders. So
I don't know if people know this. People are watching the show. But the Crunch are also how Scott and I met. And if it wasn't for Scott and I meeting, I would have not ended up at EOTP at all. Maybe I don't know, but that played a huge role.
I saved Julian from taking a very, very potentially ill-timed job with another Habs website. At the 11th hour, I helped Julian get in at EOTP.
Nice.
I don't have any ill will towards the unnamed website, but I was very close to joining them until Scott asked me to join EOTP. This is how close I was. I wrote up the email and like I had it in the drafts, like ready to send. Like that's how close I was. That's how close I was. And then as soon as I got the DM,
that change the course of history.
I mean, yeah, we mentioned all the time online, but like I met Andrew because got another guy who worked for Habs Eyes on the Prize, Mark Dumont. I tried to reach out to him for an interview. He had no interest in talking to me whatsoever, and he pawned me off to Berkshire. And then Berkshire and I met, and look what happened. Now I'm doing shows with Berkshire, and Mark works for the Canadiens now. I mean, Mark's doing okay, but like Mark, in a weird way, also opened a door for me while also not talking to me at the same time. So lo and behold, be careful who you shut out in your life.
You get big timed by Mark Dumont, and you still make it in the industry.
I can't wait till I big time him. I can't wait till he like asks me for something, and then I'm like, yeah, why don't you go talk to someone else?
I don't do that, Mark.
Don't do that, Mark. Who are you, Mark? Who cares?
All right. I got one other topic to talk about. But before I do that, I got to tell everybody to go download the SDPN app. Go to their merch store. Buy some Game Over merchandise like this beautiful cup. And also check out Game Over International. I'm going to self-plug because that show is taking a lot out of me so far.
Yeah, I don't know how you're
I was
doing
talking
it,
with friends this afternoon. I guess not this afternoon. Sleep. And I am sleeping during the Olympics so far, an average of 4.5 hours a day. So please make it worth it for me. Go watch Game Over International. I have Sean Fitzgerald coming on tomorrow morning. So we're on at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on SDPN on both their Twitter and their YouTube. We're simulcast just like we are right now. And also you can check out the podcast, download Game Over International, wherever you can get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Music, all that stuff. Robert asks, how are you alive? I don't know. It's a rough go.
How are you going to do tough. Game Over International and Game Over Montreal on the weekend, Andrew? How is that ever going to happen?
Well, you see, Julian, this guy named Julian McKenzie is going to do Game Over Montreal on the weekend. He's saving.
You're giving Julian another job? Come on.
Julian's got so many jobs.
I hear he's terrible. He made some tweet about how Caden Primo should be sent to the minors and the Canadiens should, find some other goalie to take the pucks. And what insight from that guy. He sucks.
Boo, hiss, boo.
And also on the weekends for Game Over International, I should also mention that the host is not me. It's Tic Tac Omar, our good buddy, who's been doing great. He did great last weekend. Got some cool guests from the Leafs Nation to talk Olympics. So there's so much to talk about. The men's hockey tournament is starting in a couple of days here. That's super fun as well. Women's hockey tournament has been fantastic watching Nat Spooner and Sarah Fillier just absolutely crush it. Sarah Nurse, oh my God, she's been amazing. Sarah Nurse, I've never seen her play this well. So a lot of awesome stuff there. Adam's a tyrant to Andrew, and Andrew's a tyrant to Julian.
You see how it is. You see how it is, man. That's how it is. The SDPN has black people working on a weekend. I get it. I get it. I understand. Whoever made that comment, I understand.
Oh my God.
I understand.
He's disrespecting Black History Month too.
All this is, they got black people working on a weekend for this.
Oh my God.
Yo. And I know with Adam, if you drink too many of those bubblies, actually, I got some in the fridge. I'll pull one out actually. But if you drink any of those bubblies, man, he got you.
Oh God. All right. So last topic of the show tonight. Should the Montreal Canadiens in the offseason bring back one PK Subban? Unrestricted free agent. His decline is real. He's probably not going to be asking that much money and probably not that much term. He's open to it. He mentioned today, I read a column from Stu Cowan in the Montreal Gazette. He doesn't rule it out.
I'm here for it. I'm here for
yes.
it. Yeah. I mean, if you're shipping Petrie out, Sherratt's gone, and you don't have any other ready-made like NHL top 4 quality defensemen, why the hell not? Like, at least give the people who are going to be there, one of their old heroes back. Give them something to cheer for. I mean, we don't need him to be 26-minute a night, 30-minute a night PK Subban. It's, hey, come here, score some power play goals, give the fans something to cheer for, and sell a friggin' truckload of 76 jerseys once again and make back some of that money you lost during this pandemic.
Yeah, man, it's an easy PR move. If we consider the last 6 or 7 months for the Montreal Canadiens, this is a team that is picking up the pieces off the fact that they're going through the worst season of its franchise. And that came after they got rid of a few fan favorites and guys like Philip Deneau and the whole Logan Mailloux ordeal as it is. I can't imagine that the brand is looking too good for the Montreal Canadiens right now. That's just an easy PR signing. And I mean, if PK is willing to play the role of mentor for some of the younger players on the team, as a guy who was in Montreal in his younger days, knows a thing or two about playing in the market, obviously, if he's matured, if he's at a point where he's willing to take on that role and responsibility, it could work out maybe, but yeah, I think it'd be nothing more than that. But you also have to wonder if PK Subban would want to play on a contending team as well, depending on what those offers might be as well. I still think, though, even if he does make it seem as if he wants to play hockey, I have a hard time seeing him waiting, if it gets to that point, waiting until August for a PTO to play on some team, when ESPN is right there being dude, take the broadcasting money. You're a natural already as it is on camera. Come get this money and talk about hockey and be a stellar analyst or personality at the very least, as opposed to trying to hope for dear life to crack a roster for a team that might need you on a PTO. That's just the way that I feel.
I think the interest in him would be, I think there's a lot of interest in a player like him too, even if it's 1 to 2 years on a relatively cheap deal. There's any number of teams that are like, hey, we need to round out the defense. Subban could be a power play weapon. He's a guy who brings experience to that. He's been to the Stanley Cup final. He's been into the playoffs with the Habs, obviously not with the Devils since he's been traded there, but there's people who are looking for that. And then once he gets to a certain point in his career with whenever he crosses that age threshold there, like you said, ESPN's right there. Any broadcasting company who has any deal with hockey would love to have that personality on there because it becomes must-watch TV, honestly. ESPN, hey, we're going to pay PK Subban a truckload of money to come in and basically just ruin John Tortorella's entire life in the studio. And honestly, it's pretty great because you have Torts can come in and poo-poo everything, but PK is just going to come in, bright suit, and he's just going to do the exact opposite of what Torts does the entire time. And Torts is just going to get more and more red in the face, and it's going to be hilarious much-watch TV, honestly.
And depending on whatever contract he might sign with ESPN, he could find a way to get money from them and money from Sportsnet too, if he's able to finagle it right. So that way he could be on one week, maybe disagreeing with John Tortorella on one take, and then he's just yucking it up with Ron McLean on another week.
Messing up Elliot Friedman's hair.
Yeah, top chirping back and forth with Kevin Bieksa. If I'm PK Subban and NHL teams just say, you know what, man, we're not going to pay you all that much money. We're only going to have you on a PTO. Why go through that and put your body through more rigors and stuff when you could be making that broadcast money and conserving your body as you go through the rest of your life? At this point, PK Subban, look, he's not going to be a Hall of Famer. We know he has the gold medal. We know he didn't play in the Olympics that much. He has the Norris Trophy. He just played his 800th NHL game. There's no shame in the career that PK Subban had, turning himself into one of the league's most premier personalities. And at his peak, has himself some pretty badass memories and moments as an NHL player. Like I say this all the time with that trade with Nashville, Montreal, like the biggest winner was PK Subban because of his visibility just grew in spades. And at the end of all this, with all the money that he's made, he's going to laugh all the way to the bank. So I get that there's pride for an NHL player wanting to play, but considering how things can go in an NHL career, I don't think you lose anything by just saying, you know what, man, let me just get these ESPN checks.
Yeah, I'd be surprised. I think the thing that annoys me about the last couple of years of PK Subban, and you mentioned like he won't be a Hall of Famer. He should be a Hall of Famer, but his career just hasn't gone that way. Like if he had just hung on and been half as good as he was his first year in Nashville over the last couple years here, we would be talking about him as a Hall of Fame guy because this is a guy who's been nominated for the Norris 3 times. You know, won it once, probably should have won it twice in Montreal, but the fact is, if you don't have that longevity and you don't win a Stanley Cup, you don't get in. And that's unfortunate. I feel like if he were interested in coming back to Montreal, to me, there would essentially be two caveats. The first is he would have to change his game a significant amount. Because I find like watching PK, he's somewhere along the line has bought into what someone else has told him makes him special, but it's not what makes him special. You go back and watch PK Subban highlights in Montreal, and on the power play, he's more like Andrei Markov than Shea Weber. He had the big shot, yeah, but he was trying to make seam passes all the time, right? Like that was his big thing. Or he would drive down deep and find somebody across the net or cut around the net. And now it's just like the big slapper over and over and over again, and he's not as effective.
Yeah.
And the same token in the defensive end, you know, he was beaten down so much by Michel Therrien and that coaching staff into dump a puck off the glass, dump the puck off the glass. That's all he does now. No player over the last like 5 years or so has dumped the puck out more often than PK Subban, which is crazy because he has the skill to carry the puck and the skill to move the puck. So those things I would say like he has to change it up, and I think he has to alter his workout regimen to be built more towards speed and less towards like being physical along the boards because he's lost a lot of that quickness that it made him so amazing to watch early in his career. I think there's a recoverable thing with PK. It's just, is he willing to make those decisions and be in a leadership role essentially, right? Lead the next generation in like how to play in Montreal and thrive in Montreal. Because I think it could be a gigantic PR win to bring him back. But the one thing that like makes me wonder if it's worth it for him and for the Canadiens is if he stays the player that he is right now and he comes back, does it tarnish his legacy as a Montreal Canadien? Because right now, if you just look at his career with the Montreal Canadiens, it is spectacular. He was, at that time, at worst, the second best defenseman in the league over his tenure with the Montreal Canadiens. Only Erik Karlsson was consistently better. So to come back now, if he just gets like lit up, like if he has a season like Jeff Petry's having, everybody's going to be on him, even in a bad season. You know, like everyone knows this season is a joke, but everyone's still on Jeff Petry, right? And I don't want that to happen to another guy that a lot of us consider like a Habs legend. You know what I mean?
Well, at least in that case, if it happens with PK, like I think people have to understand, people should at least understand that the PK Subban that they'd be watching has clearly fallen off from his better days, whereas opposed to Jeff Petry, yes, he has the backdrop of a season that nobody expected to have go this wrong. But at the beginning of this year, if NHL players were still going to the Olympics, people had him listed as like as a potential defenseman playing in Beijing. Like the fall off for Jeff Petry, and I understand in the second half of last year, like he already kind of started to decline, and he also had to deal with injuries as well. But like the fall off is much more drastic for Jeff Petry, a guy who was essentially like Scott is definitely been this guy who's been flying this flag about Jeff Petry being the best defenseman on this team for the last how many years, even with Shea Weber in the lineup. So people thought that even if Shea Weber was not going to be around, Jeff Petry would firmly blossom as the guy, as the best defenseman on this team. And he has not done that. If PK Subban were to do that next year, and presumably if he were to be signed, what the Canadiens have him as what, like a fourth, fifth, sixth defenseman on this team. The expectations are not going to be the same compared to what Jeff Petry has gone through this year. I know we're using those two as an example, but still. So yeah, I don't know how much PK playing like PK as he is now would affect his legacy. It can't be that much. Like, I mean, the goals that he scored in Montreal to add to his lore in the city, not to mention the donation to the Children's Hospital, those will dwarf anything that he'd do in a Canadiens uniform well past his prime.
I really would like to see it is tough because, like you said, you don't want to pile on a guy who comes here and who bleeds for Montreal. We know PK loves the city, and a good chunk of the city still loves him. You don't want to see them come back and be a shell of themselves. It's kind of why Mark Bergevin didn't sign Andrei Markov when he had the opportunity to come back, and he just didn't have it. And you don't want to watch that guy that you saw at their peak, their absolute best, like 2014 PK Subban in the playoffs against the Bruins and against the Lightning and everything was on another stratosphere compared to everyone else. We've seen Andrei Markov be that good. It would be it's so tough that you don't want them to come back, and it's kind of like watching that old horse try and still go around, out in the yard there, and it's just not the same. I think that if they have the right coaching staff in place, and right now that is not Dominique Ducharme, unfortunately, I think that they can, modify that game there and be like, hey, this is what we want you to do, and play to that strength there, and they can get something out of that. And I want to see that. I'd like to see 76 come back, end his career in Montreal, and then go on to whatever is next for him. I think he'd make a great team ambassador. I think he'd do really well if he goes into media. The sky's the limit for him after his playing career is done. But selfishly, as a fan, why not have a mentor for that? I look at a player like Jaden Struble, who plays at Northeastern. He's just a freak of an athlete. He's a physical specimen, built like PK Subban was when he broke into the league. That's a guy who's going to be coming into the Canadiens organization in the next couple years. Who better to mentor someone who, plays that same way than the guy who perfected that style at the NHL? Well, maybe not perfected, but did that for the Canadiens. There's a lot of positives, and even if he's not what he was, and we're not expecting him to be, there's so many positives to take from that it's hard to really ignore the possibility of doing that. And like we said, the Canadiens are going to be the only team potentially interested in a free agent PK Subban at this point.
Yeah, and I think the other thing we mentioned earlier about, vibes, right? And having fun. I don't know who brings more fun than PK Subban. He can't do what he used to do, obviously, on the ice, but he just seems to have an aura around him that brings fun. Obviously, there's some people who have friction with him just because, honestly, he never stops talking, right? And some people can't handle that. But it seems like with Nashville, from people that I talk to, and in New Jersey, he has really vibed well, especially with the young players in those locker rooms. And I feel like that could bring a lot of value beyond the on-ice product from PK Subban in Montreal. I'm interested in the idea of it. I think it would be really fun. And I think PK getting a chance to play again in Montreal, maybe we see more of the best of PK, because he's always, to me, struck me as a guy who has thrived when there's pressure. And frankly, there's not a lot of pressure in New Jersey. And I think that he would care a lot more on the ice in Montreal. But before we go, there was another question here saying, should the Canadiens bring in Nazem Kadri this summer? Because, he grew up a Canadiens fan. Bring in Kadri and Subban. That brings a lot of fun. Here's the thing, though. Nazem Kadri's going to make like $10 million this offseason.
Before this season, I wanted it so badly. Yeah, it's perfect.
It doesn't line up for the Canadiens rebuild or for Kadri's career. Like, he wants to go to a contender. There's no way it makes sense for him. And I would love to see Kadri in a Canadiens jersey. I love him as a player, and he seems like a good kid too. I say he's a kid, but not a kid.
He's like 31.
Yeah, he's not that much younger than me. I just everybody who I can remember being drafted, I think they're a kid.
I'll say this about Kadri. I guess it really depends on what he wants. Because if he wants to go to a contending team, think of all the contending teams that are good right now. How many of them can afford Nazem Kadri at 9-10 million a year?
Yeah, not many.
If Nazem Kadri wants 9-10 million a year, and if the Canadiens offload enough assets, maybe they could do that. And if Nazem Kadri is cool with getting that bag out in Montreal, maybe you sell him on the idea that the first 2 years of that deal that you sign are not going to be great, but year 3, 4, 5 could be a lot better. I wonder what the New Jersey Devils said. Is that what they said to Dougie Hamilton when they signed? Because the Devils right now are not a good team, but Dougie Hamilton still signed in New Jersey anyway, right? And that's what it is. Maybe there are guys around the league who realize, you know what? Like, I want the bag, I want the money. And Nazem Kadri, I get it. Like, there's nothing wrong with him trying to do that. But if you're the Montreal Canadiens, and if you're in a position where you can get that to him, I don't see a reason why not. He'd be their best center in quite some time. You consider the center depth as it is right now, you could slot him either above or below Nick Suzuki. That's the only competition he has at that position, and that only really depends on Nick's strides and how his chemistry goes with certain line mates, obviously. But yeah, if the Canadiens are able to bring in Nazem Kadri, I think that makes sense. You just have to kind of sell him on the idea that he's not going to win right away, but you do that by giving him as much money as you can.
Yeah, to your point, Julian, about Kadri maybe chasing the money, his last contract, he's been severely on. And it was a very friendly contract that he signed with Lou Lamoriello and the Leafs. So it might be the same situation as like Max Pacioretty, where like, yeah, he went to a contender, but he was also looking to secure the bag there as well. And if Kadri wins the Stanley Cup this year with Colorado, winning again right away may not be the highest of priorities, right? It may be securing a future for him and his family.
That was my thought. Is I'm like, if he wins the Stanley Cup this year, if the Colorado Avalanche finally win the Stanley Cup again, is he more willing to kind of go, okay, I've got my cup. I had, all this, success here. I don't mind taking a step back for the Canadiens and playing with Nick Suzuki and Patrice Bergeron in Montreal next season.
God.
Just imagine it. You have Nick Suzuki.
Oh my God. You're not serious.
I mean, I've had stranger suggestions before, so like I am all in on Kent Hughes signing his former client to the Canadiens this offseason.
Stop it.
No, because it's going to infuriate Bruins fans, and then when they have to play the Leafs,
had enough of those flaming Mountain Dews, my dude. What are you doing, brother?
I'm having fun because the Canadiens have won 8 games in this season, and it's this or I look at net.
Going to Montreal.
I mean, I think it would be great.
I put it out there as a joke when they first signed Kent Hughes because he's Bergeron's agent, and Bergeron is an unrestricted free agent. Bergeron is from the province of Quebec. I know people say he grew up a Nordiques fan, but the Nordiques ceased to exist when he was like 9. So I don't give a crap that he was a Nordiques fan. Most Nordiques fans in this province are Canadiens fans now. So it doesn't make sense to me.
What about the ones that joined the Avalanche? Maybe not.
Nah, I don't think you care about the I don't know how many Nordiques fans went with them to the Avalanche. I feel like that's a very small number.
Would it be funny though if Bergeron like signed with the Avalanche on the cheap?
I mean,
It would
define fun, like
be unfair.
Yeah, unfair. Like, yeah, we've got, Gabriel Landeskog, Nathan McKinnon, and Mikko Rantanen, and also Patrice Bergeron's just kind of there. He'd just replace Nazem Kadri on that team, honestly, that it's like Nazem Kadri is almost an afterthought despite leading the team in points this season because Rantanen and McKinnon and Cal McCarr are just absolutely out of this world. So every single game, it's just unfair.
I want to make a bet with Scott about Patrice Bergeron because there's absolutely no chance that.
Do I have to eat something?
You know what? Actually,
Hot Ones Gauntlet.
I will do the Hot Ones Gauntlet. Yes. I swear to God, I will do the Hot Ones Gauntlet.
Yes, that's the deal. If Patrice Bergeron, okay, how do we do this? So like, if Patrice Bergeron joins the Montreal Canadiens, I guess.
Julian does
I guess I got it. I got to do the Hot Ones Gauntlet again. But if Patrice Bergeron does not join the Montreal Canadiens, Scott, you have to do the Hot Ones Gauntlet. And you have to do it on YouTube with Laura watching. Laura does not have to participate.
I would not subject her to that. She has to do something for 500 subscribers. Like,
yeah, no way. Like, and like, also when you're doing it, I want like Andrew and I, we'll like hang out with Laura too. Laura, by the way, is you can follow her at the Active Stick. She is Scott's co-host on the Locked On Montreal Canadiens podcast that Scott co-hosts every day. So Laura's
sounds
the
fun to
homie,
me.
also an EOTP alum as well.
That's right.
Yes.
All right, we got one comment here that I want to go through before we wrap it up, and that was from Robert Sullivan, saying if they sign Kadri, they could run a Kadri Anderson Gallagher line. That is the most ultimate shit disturber, annoying person line of all time.
Brad Marchand.
2/3 of it would be a London Knights line.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Do you see what Brad Marchand did tonight?
I haven't watched the video, but it also coincided with Marcus Foligno kneeing Adam Lowry in the face. So it's been a banner night across the NHL.
It's nuts. What the hell is in the water, man? Like Brad Marchand already was getting antsy. Like at one point, like Sidney Crosby lost his stick and he literally got in his way to keep him from getting a stick at the bench. And then he runs up on Tristan Jarry and acts like a thug on him. Like, I don't know what his deal is.
Well, he's Brad Marchand, and he's Napoleon in hockey form, so he's got an ego the size of the city of Boston, but he's 5'6". So,
but damn, you really on one today, Scott.
They've won 8 games this season. It's all I have.
Hey, that's not true.
All I have is shit posting, Julian. It's all I have right now.
That's not what your girl would say.
And she's sleeping upstairs. I have the dog in the other room.
Wow, you have no shame. And you see that this brother is sick. Drop my earphone.
We need the Montreal Canadiens to give Scott back meaning in his life.
This brother is sick.
Yeah, all I saw from Marchand was him like stealing a puck. It was like somebody's first goal puck, and he was like, "Nope, zoinks."
Brad Marchand does not care. He is on one tonight.
He comes in and he punched Tristan Jarry basically in the back of the head. Like that's
a couple months ago, I saw a good friend of mine who happens to be a Bruins fan in Edmonton, Low Tide, the host of the Low Tide show, talking about how Brad Marchand's penalties were down. And maybe he could be a Lady Bing candidate, similar to how like Stan Mikita went from like penalty machine to cutting his penalties down to almost nothing. And I was like, no, man, no, he's not sportsman-like. I don't give a crap if he's taking penalties or not. He's like the least sportsman-like player in this league.
Brad Marchand took that personally and just dialed the shithousery up to 11 for the rest of the season. He has been
Also, for Brad Marchand, he was given a game misconduct for what he did to Tristan Jarry. So I believe he'll be subjected to league review with that.
And George Peros will cover his eyes and go, it happens to the best of us. I understand, and nothing will change. So
that's the NHL.
Who hurt you?
I'm gonna wrap it, boys. It was a fantastic time hanging out with you tonight, and for everyone who watched, get to sleep. Because it's time to get your Z's in before tuning into Game Over International in the morning, where I have Sean Fitzgerald joining me. And we're going to talk about everything that happened overnight, because I'm not sleeping. It's the way it goes. I sleep in the day now. All right, before I close things up, first Julian and then Scott, tell everybody where they can find your stuff.
The internet. Nah, I'm kidding.
Julian taking off guard. He's like, I've got so many podcasts.
That's what it takes to do. I was on the Athletic Hockey Show with Ian Mendez earlier this week. We had a conversation with Mike Legg. If you don't know who that is, he's the guy who did the Zegras before Trevor Zegras, I think, was even born. Maybe. Who knows? Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate, actually, because Zegras was born in 2000. Mike Legg did it in 95. We had a conversation with him. Chris Johnston show, of course, on the SDPN. Brand new. Actually, I can say this. So we had the episode with CJ on Monday. The new episode of the CJ show will come out on Friday. Normally we have it Monday and Thursday. This week's second episode of the week will come out on Friday instead of Thursday. And obviously later this week, there will be a new episode of Hockey Inside Out. And tomorrow there should be a new episode of Zone Time through Yahoo Sports, where we will hand out mid-season awards, including Zone Time Moment of the Year and worst take of the year. You should stay tuned for my pick because I went a little bit off the board, but when you consider who the answer to that is, I think we can all agree that that person may have the worst take of the first half of the season and by far this year. And you don't have to look that far. No, it's
I was
not
gonna say,
you.
oh no, Julian read my tweets. Oh no, this is terrible.
No. Gentlemen, this take is far worse than any tweet or any musing that John Tortorella could ever say, but you have to watch or listen to Zone Time tomorrow to figure that out. It's a very bad take.
I can't wait.
I am very excited about this then. You can find me on Twitter at Scott Matla. You can find me doing Locked On Canadiens on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, articles, AHL stuff, all that over at Habs Eyes on the Prize. I only have like 1/5 the jobs Julian does, so I am less prolific nowadays.
Be thankful that you work.
Yeah. It's
That
so
sounds
yeah,
like a
that
threat, Julian.
I was gonna say, is Adam gonna break into my house and make me work now too? Like,
Oh god.
You only get paid in carbonated flavored water.
I mean, there's enough in the fridge. I could go get a Bud Light hard seltzer or something. Like, I guess that counts, right?
I guess.
Chaotic. All right, yeah. So thanks everybody for tuning in. As always, when I end the show, if you're still tuning into this show with the way that the Canadian season is gone, I love you. It means a lot because that means you really love us, and there's not much else to tune in for, frankly. Canadians aren't giving us much to work with here. We're making the conversation last, but I will say another tease next week on Thursday. Julian's gonna be back, and there's gonna be a special guest. Perhaps an insider to break down what's going to happen for the Canadians at the deadline and going forward. Perhaps an SDPN insider, but it's not Smart Insider, man. I can guarantee you. No Sim 8s going on here. All right, so thanks everyone for watching. I will see you again in almost 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so 7 hours about.
Golly. Damn. See you
then.
guys on the weekend.